New laws for transgender people. My first thoughts were one bad apple, meaning is a group being misrepresented, and of course bringing teachers an apple to show love for them, as we expect a lot for them. And how do you like them apples? Kind of meaning what do you expect? I wonder what your thoughts will be. Firstly, this information is dealing with transgender females. For clarity, these are people who identify with being female, though they were born with male genitalia. But before we talk about some of the recent changes in law, we'll talk about the increase in hate crimes and new statutory guidance for schools on what young people should be taught in regards to sex education and gender identity. So are you ready for all that? Let's look at a little bit about what's going on in America, because that's what kind of inspired me to find out what was going on in the UK.
Policy that more importantly was at risk of hurting kids, and so that's why I decided not to set it for a hearing.
The author of this bill, Republican Assemblyman Bill Asaley, said the proposal deserves public debate.
I think it's a huge insult to the parents of California that the official position of the Democrat Party is that the parents don't have a right to know what's going on with their kids at school. I think most parents will find that shocking, that that's the position of the government.
Do you know what your children are being taught in school? Well, new statutory guidance for schools has come out on what young people are taught about sex, sexuality, and gender identity. The guidance is clear on what teachers cannot do, but not what they can do. And if schools and teachers don't get it right, they are risking lawsuits. Let's watch a clip and get a better understanding.
A California mom is livid and taking legal action towards her local school district. The mother claims her 11-year-old daughter was being encouraged and guided by teachers to transition into a boy without her knowledge. She actually says the two teachers from the school's UBU Equality Club gave her daughter tips on becoming a boy, which even included binding her breasts in an effort to hide them.
In our two clips from America, we can see a glimpse of what our future might look like. So my research found that there is an increase in gender dysphoria among young children in UK. So what is gender dysphoria? According to the NHS, the treatment for gender dysphoria aims to help people live the way they want to in their preferred gender identity, and children under 18 are referred to Gender Identity Development Service for treatment. Let's watch another clip from America to illustrate the importance of treatment.
Right, thanks, Jason. A new state health department rule is now in effect, preventing transgender youth from accessing what's known as gender-affirming care. Reporter Eric Waxler spoke with one parent who says her daughter left the state because of what they see as a war on people who are transgender.
Heather Saint-Amand says her daughter came out to her at 12 years old and got the support she needed from the beginning.
We were able to immediately speak with the doctor, get resources, and get referrals to speak with all the people and build our medical team so that I can make sure that my daughter was supported.
Her daughter, now 19, took puberty blockers when she was 12, and Heather disputes anyone who calls it child abuse, saying the effects are not irreversible.
What to me is...
So in that clip, she goes on to say that without access to treatment, in her view, this could be child abuse. As without treatment, a child could become suicidal. And the referral and treatment in the UK currently has long waiting lists, which is reasonable to assume the same effects could happen. Another reason why long waits would be an issue is all-girls schools can refuse transgender girls, as there is an exemption for admission to single-sex schools. So if a boy wants to identify as a girl, but they have the genitalia of a boy, the school can use this exemption under the Equalities Act. This is a good time to mention they cannot legally apply for gender recognition until they meet several mandatory requirements, one of which is being 18 years old. So they may want to identify as the opposite sex, but they are not legally going to be recognized as the opposite sex. So the schools have this exemption if they cannot accommodate them. It would be a safety risk if you think about it. It just takes one bad apple. Think of it this way, even co-ed schools, boys and girls, have separate toilets and changing rooms. Let's hear what the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, had to say about the new guidance for dealing with sex and gender identity in schools. A full link to the Times radio video
and article will be left in the description area below.
A case in the papers over the weekend of a teacher who says that she was told to apologise to 11-year-old girls at a private girls' school because she said "good afternoon, girls" at the start of a lesson. And she was made to apologise by, I think it was the head teacher, because not everyone there identified as female. Now, that's something that, you know, may be happening in certain classes up and down the country, may not. Do you think that this goes to the very heart of what the guidance needs to address?
In that case, you know, the well-being of girls is also very important, and "good morning, girls" is absolutely fine to say in a girls' school to a girls' class, you know, and we have to be sensible and have a big dose of common sense here.
I have taken clips of that interview as mentioned, and you can see the full clip in the description area below. The Education Secretary goes on to say that there will be guidance soon. But I think the policies will be similar to the new prison policies, which we'll discuss in a bit. So there needs to be further guidance in this area. And in my view, especially since schools have this new statutory requirement when teaching about gender identity. There is a fine line to educating and encouraging, and I have left a link below to the statutory educational requirements. There is an online course for educators Monday the 26th of June 2023, as the curriculum needs to be inclusive. And what does that mean? As the statutory guidance also requires schools to develop a policy appropriate for their community and the curriculum that is age appropriate. All this needs to be available for parents either by a school website or by access to other means. It also needs to state clearly which lessons parents can opt their children out of and which lessons will be mandatory. I would like to think society's become more acceptable, but given the statistics, transgender hate crime is on the increase in some communities, as 44 police forces recorded a whopping 4,264 incidents of transgender hate crime for 2021-2022. So educational awareness needs to be balanced. I've left a link in the description area below so that you can see if your area is at high risk. New prison policy came into force in February 2023 for prisons in the UK when it comes to transgender people or those that prefer to identify as female when they were born male. The policy is clear. No transgender women with male genitalia will be able to be in mainstream women's prisons. This new approach also extends to those who have committed violent crimes. The new guidance will apply whether or not the transgender prisoner has a gender recognition certificate. Jessica Brennan, she was convicted of heinous crimes against females and sentenced to 22 years in prison. Jessica, at the time of offending, her legal sex was a male, though he or she identifies as a woman, and only in exceptional circumstances, for example, low-risk prisoners can apply to be held in women's prisons. Though at present 90% of transgender women are held in men's prisons, and most do not request to move to a woman's prisons, these additional measures are to protect women, and if there are transgender women prisoners who cannot be housed in men's prisons, they can be imprisoned in a specialist unit. In this video, I'm trying not to be political. It is to educate parents and educators so that they are aware of the new laws. Be mindful, if you want to bring a lawsuit, remember the courts will expect you to minimize risks, so be sure you're well informed. If you or someone you know will benefit from this information, please share. Well, I hope you found today's video interesting, and information is power. Why not subscribe and watch more of our videos? If you need legal help, contact Legal Minded Friends.